So, here we are. It's noon. I have shared out the password with my students, um, and we're here to talk today with Tim Vrooman. Tim um, is a colleague of mine, someone who I went to college with. We worked together in a lot of things. We played in a lot of ensembles together. We've traveled together, so we know each other pretty well. Tim, do you want to announce any other things about yourself from the
Sure.
get-go?
Like Mr. Mag said, I am Tim Vrooman. I work over at El Dorado High School, where I currently hold the position of assistant band director and also orchestra director. What that includes is that I help facilitate all of the band side, meaning band, color guard, drum line, and then I also facilitate orchestra, which we have just inherited this year through our instrumental program. And we have really been developing the full symphony orchestra for the first time in about 20 years in high school's history.
Wow.
So it's been a really fun year so far, up until the closure. But it was really cool to see the orchestra being on this uphill climb the entire year. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. So the orchestra, you said you inherited from the instrumental program?
Yeah, so what had originally happened is that the past 2 years while I was there, the orchestra position was one where it was 0 period at the high school, and then it was 1 period at a middle school, and then 2 periods at another middle school.
Okay.
And between all those periods, they also had travel periods. And so the district decided this isn't working for us. We got to find out something different. And at the time they were trying to find something different, I was still a half-time employee with El Dorado. And so what had happened is that they took the orchestra, they moved it from 0 to during the day, so that way I can still teach my 0 period. And they assigned me 2 periods of orchestra. So that actually made me a full-time employee.
Nice.
I mean, I was already full-time before. I was just being paid as half-time.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to see that there's growth there. I did some of my observations at El Dorado, and I remember that it being a huge program, and even then that there's still room for it to grow. That's good. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
you were there when Mr. Inzerillo was there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a fun character.
I like Mr. Inzerillo. He's a nice guy. He's in a ska band, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
I think he tried to start one up when he moved to Columbine High School.
He's teaching at where?
He's in Columbine High School.
Really?
In Colorado. Yep.
Interesting. That is very interesting that he would wind up there.
Yeah, it was a shocker to a lot of people.
Well, like I said, he was great. He was actually when I was there, both he and Mr. Sampson were really open with talking about everything and being good hosts to young college kids who were observing. But he really opened up and was like, "Let me know what you need," and all that, because he's a great guy.
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay. So, we were talking about this a little bit before we really started. How are you currently dealing with this whole quarantine situation? You're stuck at home, all of your stuff's canceled. What's going on?
So, personally for me, it's been difficult. Where, everybody is stuck at home, all events have been canceled. It's a rough patch. And then on top of that, it's one of those things where I really enjoy being in the classroom with the kids. And I'm sure you can really relate to that. And I've really found myself missing the day-to-day routine. Even though I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to school and be on time, I mean, I miss it, and I miss that interaction that we always had, and where we actually got in the classroom, made music, where, I would stress about getting a facility for a certain group, or, I'd much rather be doing that than sitting here at home.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things, that the situation isn't obviously favorable, but we have to make the most of what it is. And I know that all of this precaution is seriously just to keep everybody safe. So yeah, the situation's been rough. Personally, I've had a rough time adjusting to it. I know a lot of people have had a rough time adjusting to it, but I mean, we're doing the best that we possibly can given the situation that we have.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like while this is necessary, it really sucks. Because I don't know about you, but I had my festival got canceled. Actually, both my festivals got canceled. One of them got canceled for a different reason. Uh, we had a trip that was tied in with one of our festivals that got canceled. Our band banquet is canceled, and that was going to be our first band banquet like ever that this school has ever done. And I was like all hyped up, like, okay, I got my band council, and they're playing it out, and we had a kid whose mom was going to make desserts for us, and we were like so ready for this, and we were like, okay, May, everything is out.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to give you a few examples, our color guard was getting ready the weekend that everything hit.
One of
The
the first
exact
victims
weekend.
was Winter Guard. I remember that.
Yeah. Winter Guard. And that was their trip for Las Vegas at the time.
Oh, that sucks.
That was a Las Vegas regional. Phone call.
I don't know. My phone just started making noise. Why did you make noise, phone? Okay, that was weird.
But
No.
yeah, the first event, obviously the regionals were all canceled for Winter Guard, and then Drumline followed a very similar fate. All the Drumline events were cut, except for SEPA. And then it was just this cascade of things where WGI completely cut off their season. So Winter Guard season is done.
Yeah.
And this was going to be a year where our World Guard was actually going to make finals at Dayton in the World Division. They were actually ranked, I believe it was 7th in the nation at the time, and they were going to go in. They were ranked first in California, and they were getting ready to go. Had all these rehearsals planned out. Had the trip all set up, and then it just had the rug ripped from under them.
That's so rough. And now, like, my heart really goes out to the seniors. Like,
oh, big time.
It's so much of their stuff, like so much of the fun stuff of like being a senior is at the end of senior year, and
Yeah.
like having that all done, and on top of that, like, I couldn't imagine having like half a season of marching band and being like in a really good position to do really well, and then just be like, okay, everybody, you got to stay at home.
Yeah,
Cancel.
exactly. It was so rough when all that news hit, because it just wasn't affecting one aspect of our program. It was
the whole thing.
affecting everything. And I know it wasn't just us. Like you said, all your stuff got canceled. All of our stuff got canceled. We had the Dayton trip. We had SCPA finals with Drumline. The Reno Jazz Festival. Our jazz bands couldn't go to Reno anymore.
Right.
And our festival that we actually host for band and orchestra, that got canceled. That week that we actually got pulled was the week that we were supposed to host that festival. And
wow.
Yeah, it was a trying time when all that stuff was starting to get pulled. And
yeah.
And like you said,
how long have you been hosting the festival?
El Dorado has been hosting the festival since 2008, I believe. Okay. I believe that's when the Performing Arts Center for the district opened up. So once the PAC opened up for PYLUSD, El Dorado was hosting it because it's on the El Dorado campus. It
Mhm.
just makes sense. It
Yeah.
comes with the territory.
Yeah, I was just good because, like, I was, as you know, I went to school like 10 minutes away from there.
Yeah.
So like never went to El Dorado for our festivals. We went to like I can't remember the schools. They were all in Anaheim, pretty much.
Yeah, I believe I think it's Loera hosts it now,
Mm.
I
Yeah, I
want to
think
say.
it might have been. I can't remember, but like we like never El Dorado. I don't think we went
Yeah.
to like a few different ones, but never there. I
Yeah.
remember going
And
to California high school because I remember that's like a relatively wealthy high school, and I remember being like, this place
yeah.
is like weird.
And it was weird because right up until the closure, we were still having emails about people like, "Hey, can we get into your festival? Like, do you have any open
Oh,
slots?" Because usually it's our district festival,
yeah.
but we always have like 2 or 3 slots available for people that want to come and
Hmm.
play in one more festival in a really nice venue. And we were still getting those emails of like, "Hey, I want to come play in your festival." And then SCSBOA, who is our adjudicating body, actually sent out the email saying we're no longer doing festivals. Then that was right before the closure.
Hmm.
So
That that's rough. We had so this was way back in March, right? So I've completely lost track of time.
it's
Um,
okay. It felt
but
like 5 years ago. I know.
that it was the week of the 11th. So March 11th, right? Which was a Wednesday. That was going to be our CCS festival, which is the Central California version of CSBOA.
Right.
Um, and so we hopped on a bus. The first thing bus driver says, and this is like back when people were just like worried about it, um, or that it was like escalating. You could kind of feel that like everything was getting a little bit tenser, right? One of the first things the bus driver says to us was, "This bus went to Santa Clara today," and Santa Clara was like one of the Californian outbreak sites, I guess. And we were like,
Ooh.
"Huh?" And then so we get on the bus, we take the bus trip. Everyone's nervous. We're ready for festival because this was the festival, right? Or at
Mhm.
least so the way I was pitching it to my kids, we had two festivals, right? We had this one, which was like going to be the serious festival where we get adjudicated, we get the workshop with the judges, and they all get to like have a real educational experience, and then we go home, right? So we were going to do that, and then we were going to go to the Santa Cruz Boardwalk and do one of those festival in the parks festivals.
Oh, those are always fun.
Yeah, basically like it's you play like a little mini concert in the beginning of the day, and then they just get to like hang out in the theme park. So those were our two. So this was the serious festival that like I was really worried about. Like I was losing sleep. I was super stressed out because like 2 or 3 weeks before I had done a recording, and I was like, oh god, they're not ready. This is like, I could feel myself like tensing up and like we gotta like spring into action here. Um, and so we get to festival on Wednesday, March 11th. We go. It's being hosted by the community college. Well, it's technically being hosted by Monterey High School, but like through they're at one of the community colleges here. And so we get there, and as soon as we step off the buses, they're like, "Oh, the power's out." So apparently, the
Oh,
power went out to the whole campus. And they didn't think they would get it back till like 6, and we were there at like 2. Um, and so we stood there for like maybe 20 minutes, and then the director who was in charge just came out and was like, "Oh yeah, we're just canceling it. It's over." And so like all these kids like got on this bus to like do this in the
oh
first
man.
place. We went through all this stress. We just go to the bus and leave.
At least it wasn't associated with
Right.
the outbreak that was going on. I mean,
That's
I mean, it's unfortunate.
yeah,
It's seriously unfortunate that there was a power outage and it led to that. But
yeah,
at least there was still willing to be a festival.
yeah.
And
But it was like literally, so the next day my principal like sends out emails that are like, hey, everyone, we're collecting data on like upcoming field trips. Please let us know what you're doing. And so like I sent them, like I had 3 or 4 that were planned, and I think like that afternoon they're like, we're canceling all field trips outside of the county until like May or something like that. And I was like, oh man, because that like canceled pretty much the rest of everything we were doing. And then basically I only had banquet left. And then that Friday, um, at the end of school, they're just like, okay, we're not coming back until April, and now we're not coming back until May. So here we are. It's
You
been
actually got a pretty early word about it.
yeah. Um,
Um, I know my district was really holding out as long as they could. I know Orange County only had one confirmed case at the time throughout the
mhm,
entire county,
mhm.
but no confirmed cases within any of the campuses.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
so, and so it was shut down as a precautionary measure towards the end of March. I believe it was, let's see here. It was March 16th, 17th, somewhere around there.
Hmm.
It was the week right before we were supposed to have our festival. And they said, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks. And then we'll be back for a week. And then after that week, we were supposed to go on spring break.
Hmm.
We
That
then
was
got an
exactly
email.
my school's plan too, by the way. We were going
Yeah.
to be out for 2 weeks. We were going to come back for a week. Then we were going to go to spring break, and it was all going to be roses from there.
Yeah. That was the original plan. And then we kept getting emails. We are closing all the way through spring break. We will reevaluate during this time. And then the state came down.
Yeah.
And then we realized, oh, this is going to be a lot longer than we all originally planned.
Hmm. Yeah. That's about our timeline. Was so like we got the word, that week, that Friday, the 13th. Just like that was when it seemed like everything was starting to get really serious. Like you could like the kids were like, why are we still in school? There are people that are like sick, and they're telling people not to like gather in public, and they're still having us go to this crowded school. And I'm just like, well, they got to keep it open. There's like reasons. So like basically, and this is kind of the explanation that I've gotten from a lot of admin types, is that like especially for like Title I schools, um, now I am getting a phone call. Especially like Title I schools, they need to keep open because a lot of those kids and a lot of their parents, that's a source of like meals for the kids. Like
Hmm.
sometimes that's the only time that they get to eat, and also that's the only like childcare that parent has.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was a big reason for us
yeah.
too. Not um, just simply because like both parents are working during the day,
Hmm.
and with the school closed, there's nothing that, you know, no one there to watch the child.
Yeah.
And now the really cool thing about what has gone on is that with our school district, and I assume it's with yours too, they worked out a system where it's a drive up system. And even though they can't do the childcare side of it, they actually did provide breakfast and lunch
Hmm.
for the week and for the children that were involved.
Yeah.
And so it's a no question asked situation. They drive up, they get their food, and I believe the school district did a fantastic job of
Hmm.
at least tackling that one situation.
Yeah, definitely. Our cafeteria workers at the high school, they basically, the school like put everything into the high school's hands, and I'm assuming that some of the cafeteria workers from the elementaries went over to help with that. But they're still feeding them like at least one meal a day. I'm not sure like how it works because it's been a while since I was there. But basically, they come, no questions asked, and they get food. Um,
Yeah.
and like shout out to those people, like the cafeteria workers and the custodians that are like still there, like
Oh, they've been
cleaning
amazing.
everything and doing so much. Like it's crazy. um is I'm so grateful for those people to be around. Seriously.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, okay, so let's talk about other things, lighter things. Um, let's see. So we're both 3 years into doing this.
Hmm.
How do you feel about your choice of career at this point?
Well, choice of career, there have definitely been challenges
Mhm.
in what we do, and I'm sure you can express the same ones where, you know, you're always caught up in the moment, getting prepared for which performance is coming up, trying to get facilities for your different groups, trying to just make sure that the general census of everybody, that the morale is good. There's just a bunch of different challenges that school doesn't prepare you for.
Yeah.
And even going through our student teaching, you still go through and realize, oh, there's I didn't do this in student teaching. Oh, I didn't get to see this in student teaching. But I mean, going through it being my third year now, I have definitely found an appreciation for where I am, simply because, yeah, it's a lot of work and I try to put my best foot forward all the time. But the product that we put out is extraordinary. And the fact that, excuse me, the fact that we're also up there putting out our product with our students is
Hmm.
something that not a lot of other teachers can say they do.
Right. Right.
um so it's been awesome to, not only teach them through that process, but to also be part of the product that they put out.
Hmm.
So with that, I found a real appreciation of, I am happy at where I am in my career right now. And yeah, I've had my ups and downs like everybody else, but I am very happy on where I am
Hmm.
compared to where I was 2 years ago.
Good. Yeah. I think I'd say the same thing. My first year was really hard. Um, there were like so many things that were just huge challenges. And for me, well, like my experience, I think is a little bit different than yours in that I chose a school with relatively no program, uh, where I was going to be pretty much completely on my own. Um,
Yeah.
and so dealing with like as a 24-year-old dealing with like my own ambitions as far as creating good music, confronting the reality of what that was like was really hard. uh, because it's just like you have to go, okay, well, this is year one, and at this point, they the class has existed to the point where it's pretty much just been like, this is a class that's called band, and they don't really do any concerts, and they don't really do anything. They don't do festivals. They don't march. They don't play at football games. They can barely
Mm.
read. Uh, and so like me having to go, okay, I gotta put my favorite pieces of music away and like just teach them how to learn was really hard. Especially like my first year. My second year was a little bit easier, and this year is a little bit easier still. Where like I'm starting to feel like, okay, I can pull out to Kelly and have them play and be a good experience. And I can, like, this year our festival pieces were Amazing Grace and Three Airs from Gloucester.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's nice that I can kind of feel that progression going up, but it's still, it's like really hard.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like you said, you walked into a program that was almost not there, where I walked into a program that was already fairly established.
Yeah.
And basically we had different roles. Your
Mhm.
your role was, okay, I'm going to establish this.
Yeah.
Where my role, I walk in and I was like, okay, I'm going to make this better.
Right.
And And so it's a completely different set of challenges where, you're comparing apples and oranges now.
Yeah. And especially like I think some of the things you have to think about, like, or some of the things I have to think about, aren't even things that you would have to think about anymore because like the organization aspect of things is so ingrained where it's just like, okay, well, naturally we're gonna have rehearsals on this day, and like
Yeah.
naturally we're gonna do like 3 fundraisers or whatever. Like that's just like this is how the year goes. For me, it's like, okay, well, they've never done this before, so what day is a good day? And like I have to figure out like each and every step. Uh, and that's a challenge. And I imagine for you, it's also like a challenge, like I want to make this better, but also at the same time, like how do I make sure that I'm not being a detriment to this, like not being like in the way of what was
Yeah,
already working.
exactly. Now, the with that on the band side, yes, I'm very much like that. Keep things going, but improve upon it. Like
Hmm.
this year, the symphonic band was actually well on their way to earning their first superior in a long time,
Wow.
in my opinion. And
Hmm.
I have some colleague uh, graded scorecards that would pretty much support that.
Right.
Like they were playing, what were they playing? They were playing Foundry,
Oh,
Laclamade,
wow.
and Emperor Roca. So some pretty challenging pieces,
Yeah.
and they were doing a pretty good job on them. Uh, and it was the first time that like I was really, really pushing this group. I'm like, hey, we can do this. I know
Hmm.
you guys can do it, and it was great. Whereas on the other hand, with orchestra, I actually had to start that nightly rehearsal and start getting it ingrained. And as soon as I
Right.
started getting it ingrained, different things popped up. Like, oh, this is canceled. Oh, this is postponed, and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
I can tell I'm going to have the same issue next year with orchestra on getting that schedule back to being ingrained in them,
Yeah.
because it
Next year it's
was
going to
it
be a
was a
nightmare.
it was a good start this year, and then it was like,
Yeah.
okay. So it's another challenge where I'm actually going to have to start that again. But I know that once I address that with the kids, I know that they'll be responsive to it because they've been in a program where it hasn't always been a stellar program, but they want it to improve, and that's always a good part.
Good. Yeah, that's very good. Let's see. What else do I have here? Let's see. Okay, so like obviously you can't necessarily compare the two, but like what's it like to be an assistant director as opposed to like being the only director at a school or a head director?
Right.
Because I mean you
Well,
can compare it because you're doing orchestra too, but
yeah. I mean, I see it with orchestra where, I am the head guy of orchestra. I mean, if
mhm,
I need any help, I definitely know I have resources where I can go and say, "Hey, I need help with this, and this."
mhm,
For example, I have parent boosters who are part of the band and the orchestra, and they help out in both aspects, and they see, the back and forth of everything. And the great thing is I have that support system there,
mhm.
uh, where I've had them come up and say this hasn't been here before.
Right.
and and on the flip side, like, yeah, I'm on the assistant side on the band side, but I still have my own full list of responsibilities
Right.
where, Mr. Sampson, he's great, does a wonderful job of heading everything. We really try to work together to really fill out the entire program
Mhm.
on what we believe are the goals that we should be achieving. And I guess it's not so much an assistant directorship. I guess you could call it that because, he does make all the final decisions, but
Right.
whenever whenever we're coming up to something, or whenever it's a big program wide decision, we're talking together very, very closely on, how we should progress through this, how we should handle this, how are we going to navigate this road.
Right.
Like we've been talking every day through the school closure just to see, like, what can we do,
Right.
what can we hand off to students that will keep them productive. And so even through all of this, we're still talking very closely on how we can work together versus like him giving me certain assignments and just like figure
Right,
it
right, right.
out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to belittle your position by calling you an assistant director.
No,
I
no, not at
assume
all.
I assume it's more of a directorship, mostly anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like in contrast, and it's partially probably because like the way things work up here, like I'm the only high school director in the district, uh, the only music person at my school. There's no choir person.
Oh, wow.
There's no theater program. Um, and so my list of people that I can rely on like regularly is short. I have this year, probably I think my first year I felt like I was a total island, completely cut off, like nobody was there to help me, and I just kind of kept my head down and like rammed through it. Right. My second year, I kind of felt like I could rely on my middle school director. She's been in the district for a long time, and the school was finally facilitating us like having meetings on a regular basis.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and then this year I'm finally like I know a couple people that I can rely on. I've been sending recordings to like my old master teachers and to like other people to get like feedback on how the music is going, and I feel a little bit more comfortable as I go, like finding other people who I can kind of lean on. But it's really like you have a support system that's built into your program,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
and I'm kind of envious.
Well, it does take a lot to keep that going.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, like, you have a lot more work to do, I think, on a daily basis than I do. Uh, but that's purely because, like, the teachers before me were doing nothing.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, it's just, like, how do I start this? How do I get things going? And then, like, the idea, because, like, my first year we did have a choir teacher at the high school, and then he quit. And they just haven't hired anybody. And, like, I have to like weigh that calculation. Like, do I have time for this? Do I want to teach choir? Uh, do I have the time to figure, or do I have the will to advertise it and get kids in that? And do I want to lobby for it to be a class? Like, I have to think about those. And like, do I have time in my schedule for that? Do I want to sacrifice one of I have an advanced band, I have a beginning band, and then I have like 3 guitar classes. Do I want to sacrifice one of my other classes to do a choir class? And is the school going to be willing to like sacrifice one of my guitar classes to do that?
Right.
And so like thinking through like all of those, it's really hard, because like I would rather have like a choir class at the school, like hands down. But like dealing with the reality versus like the vision is really hard.
Yeah, and choir is one of those things where it actually does have to be its own program. Like
Yeah.
it can definitely be part of the music program.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't get me wrong, we work really well with our choir director at our school,
Yeah.
but it's also its own program. So
Yeah, it's very much its own thing, and I think people don't. I mean, admin doesn't understand a lot of things, but they don't understand the difference in musicians uh, that well. They just go, oh, music, you can do whatever. Like it
yeah, it's
doesn't.
vastly different.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. And so like theoretically, I could teach a choir class, but could I teach it with the same kind of nuance and excellence and bring them to a level that I would feel comfortable with like regularly, I don't know. Um, I mean, like eventually, maybe, but I think it's much better to have like somebody who went through school to teach choir than someone like I wouldn't want to learn band stuff from a choir director. Uh,
Yeah.
you know
Like
what I mean?
if it's a one-time deal where, it's offering a different perspective,
Yeah.
that's one thing.
Yes.
Because I've gone into the choir classes once in a while just to, act as
Yeah.
a period sub. Um, and I've worked with them before, offered them different perspectives, and
Mhm.
the kids were great with it. Would I be able to do that for an entire year?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right. It's and I mean one of my master teachers, Bill Martinez, at Holland Crest, he does it. But I like you can tell he doesn't like it. Like he
Uh,
might admit it, but you can tell he doesn't, or might not admit it, but you can tell like the man. It's like his last class of the day. I feel like it's got like his worst kids of the day, and
mm,
it's a one level choir, and he takes them. He does the whole thing. Like he takes them to festival. He has a piano player so he does it right. But like
the
for a
heart's
fact
just
that
not
like
in it.
it's not his thing because he's got his. I mean his schedule is full. But like
Yeah.
he's got like band choir. And it's just like one of these things doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And which isn't to say that they should cancel the choir program at school, but I think they should expand so that more kids can have access to a higher level of of musicality from someone who actually likes choir.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, that's the way it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Looking at my list. Are they making you teach anything that on that subject? Are they making you teach anything that isn't like a band class or a strings class?
So
There.
this year, I mean, besides the once in a while period substitutions, not really.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll go and substitute for like PE
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
doesn't
We
really
all
count.
do that. It's free money.
Yeah. But one thing this year was that we did an art wheel class, and that was something new to add on top of our already existing schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's four of us where we all agreed we would teach a quarter of the art wheel class. And the art wheel class was basically set up for um, it was set up so that way it could help those with a 501 plan or with an SSA plan where they could be enrolled in a class that isn't very high. What's the word? It's not very intensive.
Right. What is the word?
But
It's a
it is
bummer.
still a
Rigorous.
general ed. Yeah, but it's still a general education class where kids can be mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to teach that. I came at it with the approach of a music appreciation
Okay.
approach,
Yeah.
um, where I believe Mr. Yoder, who is taking over after me for this last quarter coming up, is approaching it the same way,
Okay.
where Mr. Sampson actually approached it as kind of an introduction to percussion class,
Yeah.
or
Of
an
course they would.
introduction to instrumental music, where
Right.
he taught percussion, he taught ukulele,
Okay.
and just different things. And then the first quarter of it was like an introduction to theater class, where our theater teacher was actually the head of it, and she was doing like small monologues, sock puppet theater, different things, just to
That sounds like fun. That sounds like a
yeah.
good class.
It was challenging though, because
Mm-hmm.
I already had my full load of classes, and basically going through this entire load, like I was teaching 0 through 5th period, which for us that's our full load, so we're supposed to have 6th period off. But in order to get this class to work, it had to be during sixth period. And so now I was teaching 0 through sixth period, and I didn't realize how much of that time during sixth period I used
Yeah.
for, getting regular stuff done through the day. And boy, that was a challenge.
Mhm.
Because I basically gave up all my prep time for my classes in order to
Mhm.
do this one class.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing all my prep time on the time I'm supposed to be off.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a challenge getting into the hang of it.
Mhm.
And I was sad to say bye to the kids the way that it had to happen, because the last class session that they were in
Mhm.
was the one where we actually got pulled out of school.
Mhm. Yeah. I felt like kind of lucky because my last class session was with my advanced band. So that was like kind of like I had a chance to like explain what was happening like to them in my own words, and like it's gonna be okay, and we kind of had like a moment. But I imagine that would be tough with whatever class you'd have. It's just like, well, goodbye.
Yeah, and it was rough because it's a group of kids that um some of them were really great academically,
Hmm.
and some of them struggle academically,
Yeah.
where you know it was kind of like having the breakfast club in class.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Wonderful. Let me see here. Are you doing anything right now? Outside anything musical right now outside of teaching music?
well, as of March 19th, no, I have not.
Before that, let's pretend that we're in a regular
um,
year for a minute.
but yeah, during the regular year, I'll go out and do a couple of performances. Obviously, I'll go out. I'll do some church gigs. Christmas, Easter, all those regular ones. I'll get a call every now and again from the college saying, "Hey, can you fill in?" Sometimes I'm able to, sometimes I'm not, just depending on the schedule that I have.
Hmm.
And it keeps me active. I've been looking into the community groups around here as well. Um, right now, I live in Pomona, and so I've been actively participating in the Pomona community band and the Pomona Community Orchestra. And I've been playing tuba for band, obviously, and I was playing trombone for orchestra.
Nice,
So
nice.
just a way to keep the chops active.
Yeah, yeah. I highly recommend community groups to like anyone ever that's listening. Uh, like it's saved my life. I swear. Like, because I think my first semester, my first year, my first semester, I didn't do anything. I just did the work. And then my second semester, I joined the Monterey Peninsula College Band. And that's been like such a source of like fun for me and like a chance to let go. And it's like kind of a pain in the ass because like it's 7 to 10 every Thursday. So
Ooh.
like, yeah. So it makes my Thursdays like stupid long because then like it's 7 to 10 and then I have to drive home, which is like another hour, another half hour. Uh, and but like it's so much fun and it's so worth it. Um, I do that. I do. There's like a British brass band out of
Ooh.
Salinas, which is like really close to me, which is great. We play like a lot of like early 20th century like would have been like pop music where it's like these kind of like little like marchy things, and it's like really fun. So I get to sit back there and there's this. Do you know who Howard Miata is?
I don't.
He is or was the tuba designer for oh, what's that brand? They just went out.
For
Constool.
cancel?
Yeah. He was one of the lead engineers for Constool.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and he's like an amazing tuba player, amazing trombone player. He plays like in a Dixieland jazz band, and he's great, and I get sitting right next to him, like every
Oh,
day,
that's awesome.
like, and he's always like, "Oh, it sounds so good back here," and like that makes me feel good. I'm like, "Yes, this is fun." And I did a choir this year that I sang in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I'm staying pretty active musically, and I think if there's ever any directors watching, which is kind of like the point of doing these, is for directors and students, like highly recommend do community groups. Community groups
Yeah.
are so much fun. Like if you don't know people in the community, you're gonna like make some friends. You're gonna meet people, like, and it's like a chance to like go and just like sit down, not have to be in charge, and just have some fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's fun too because like our school, we do a kind of a variety show
Hmm.
every year in either February or March, and we call it Faculty Follies.
Hmm.
And what we get to do is we get to put these small acts or small skits together where the staff is actually trying to raise money for senior scholarships.
Hmm.
So it's going out to a good cause. But for that, um, us in Vapaland, uh, we're obviously doing stuff that caters to us. Like
Right.
for the past 2 years, I've been playing a tuba solo for it, and I've also been singing in an a cappella group for
Nice.
it with just like 5 people,
Yeah.
and like it's fun to get together and put those things together. It's fun to do for the students that are involved in the student body, and it's actually a great way for staff and students to actually come together and have a good time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. I mean, those are great. We had a I didn't organize it, which is why we don't do it anymore. But we had a talent show the first year I was there, which I think the choir director had put on, and like it was like my kids and his kids were the only people that were like involved in it because it was just not organized well. But so like he did a song and I did a song, and it was like a lot of fun. It's just like let's go and at least for me, it like gave me a chance to be musical outside of band because I just like I covered a Radiohead song.
yeah,
So I just sat there with a guitar and like sang a song, and it was fun.
yeah, they're
Chance
they're
to
a lot of
like
fun
be
to do.
silly. Yeah. Okay. So now I want to kind of direct some of my questions toward like being a music major in general. Um, So this next little bit, I kind of want to go through. Do you feel that your high school music experience prepared you for being a music major?
For the route I went, I
Mhm.
believe it got me ready for that because I'm in the realm, and you already know this, and I actually saw it in a couple of your questions,
Yeah.
where I went the realm of community college first.
Right.
And I believe my high school education did get me ready for my community college experience.
Hmm.
I feel if I went to a major university right after high school, I
Yeah.
probably would have been prepared as well to go in as a freshman.
Uh-huh.
But I feel going into the community college, I was very well prepared, and I was able to produce what they asked me to produce.
Hmm.
Um, so I felt that I was ready for that level. The only big thing that detracted me from saying, yeah, I'm gung ho about the 4 year university is that with the area that I was from, I was not able to take private lessons
Right.
in high school. Like my first private lessons were actually in my community college.
Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, he was great. I loved every single private lesson, even though, some of them killed my face. But it was, it's one of those things where I wasn't ready for the private lesson aspect of
Right.
community college. And in for that, that is why I felt I was ready for the community college,
Hmm.
not for 4 year university.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a very reasonable answer. I am of the opinion uh, that from the people that I've seen, the folks who went to community college tend to, at least at Cal State Fullerton, tended to do a lot better than those who just kind of jumped from high school to uh, college. And I'm not sure if just like the community college just kind of weeded out a lot of the people that like would have not done well, or what. But I'll get to my experience in a second. But I think like to a degree, uh, that maybe that not having access to a private teacher is a big part of it, and not being prepared for the amount of theory and everything else that goes into it. I think a lot of, and I know I'm guilty of this, and you guys might be too. We don't worry so much about theory. Like, I'm not gonna sit there for multiple projects and teach them how to analyze chords, because I am much more concerned, and they're much more concerned with just making good music. And
Yeah.
and while like I know there's gonna be like a music theorist somewhere that's like, you can't make like Dr. Volitsky or something, like you can't make good music if you don't know your theory. But like as a high schooler, I think you're not prepared to add all the stuff that they want, in that like a music theorist would want you to be
Right.
like constantly aware of. And
Now,
and I think
when I was
performing
in
is a good teacher of that.
yeah, now when I was in high school,
Hmm.
there was a class offered that was music theory,
Hmm.
and it was a music appreciation class, but it was taught in the aspect of we're going to learn theory.
Okay.
And basically, I learned a lot of the common practice area techniques in that class
Hmm.
and how to analyze and all that good stuff. But um, as I was going through that class, a lot of it was going over my head. Especially doing like interval ear training, like that was
Yeah.
just But having that pre-exposure to it did definitely help me a lot when I got to the community college, because a lot of the kids in the community college were struggling theory wise and with
Hmm.
dictation, where yeah, I would struggle a little bit, but I had a much better grasp on it than most other students did.
Yeah. My and uh yeah, I'll go through the whole thing. My middle school director tried to teach us a little bit of theory. And I just remember being like really annoyed. Like he would be like, it's in the California standards, so we have to go over it. And I was like, I want to play the clarinet, okay? I want to play. I don't want to sit here and like talk about like music theory. This is silly. Like it's just annoying. And then my high school director went over it a little bit, and we had like a fake. This is like a good idea, and I might just spoil it for all my kids. We had a fake final for freshman band. So we had our band. There was the freshman band, and there was like everybody else band. And since then, he's stratified it to like the freshman band, and then there's like the middle band and the highest band. But so the final for the freshman band was he would like spend a little bit of time teaching them theory, and then he'd give them like a really hard like end of the year uh
Oh, that's not
music,
right.
yeah, music theory like final. But like he'd write like at the top like, follow all of these instructions, read through the whole thing before you're done, and like on the last page it was like, just write your name on this and turn it in. uh so it's just like a fun little prank to pull on your kids. But like that was the extent to which we really talked about theory in high school, and I had like some private lessons on like clarinet, but never on tuba. So like jumping in to being like a first year music major was like really, it was like a struggle. Like you really have to like get on it really quick or you'll get left behind. And I'd say like there's very very little room for you to fall behind in any of the music theory and musicianship classes, because it's like, too bad we're going up. Like, there's so much to cover.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a nice thing about that is, you know, because I was a transfer
Yeah.
and I did a lot of my theory studying in the community college. The community college it moved at a pace where, you know, it was understandable. And then when I had to transfer over, I took, what was it? I only took the last theory class, and it was pretty much a refresher course on my last theory class
Yeah.
from community college. So it was pretty nice to actually have that and to actually, you know, go over it again, because I can pretty much guarantee you, if I had to go and look through all that stuff and, you know, secondary transition chords and whatnot, you know, yeah, I could identify them, but it would take me a while.
Mm-hmm. Actually, so like for all this distance learning stuff, I've been assigning a lot of Teoria exercises for my students, because if they don't have their instruments, I'd rather them be working on things like, or rather make sure they know how to dang read, because I'm still getting stupid kids, and I shouldn't say stupid kids, lazy kids. I'm talking about you, who think that they can just fly by writing in all their notes and not learning how to read. And so I want to make sure that they can read, and I want to make sure that they can read rhythms. And so Teoria has like some note reading things, which like all my students are acing. So like hopefully next year we come back and like they're magic at it, and also rhythm stuff. But like while I was looking at that, I was like, I should brush up on my music theory. Music theory is important, and so like I'm kind of relearning or refiguring out how to do like secondary dominance. Hello, cat. Relearning how to do secondary dominance and relearning how to do like augmented sixth chords and stuff. And like when you can kind of backwards engineer it, like when the thing is just like, this is a secondary dominant, and I can go like, okay, so they asked me for a secondary dominant on C, an augmented sixth on C. So like I can look at their fake answer. Oh my gosh, I can look at their like answer for like an augmented sixth on C, and I can kind of like reverse engineer how you get that, and it kind of comes back. So I mean, I think it's important to stay like unrusty, but at the same time, like I don't know how much in-depth analysis we need to be doing as high school directors.
Right. I definitely go through and I do
Mm-hmm.
my score study and, you know, check out what's important, you know, what do the kids need to know so that I can, you know, talk to them about it.
Mm-hmm.
And just basically movement from here to there and talking about, you know, how we're going to transition. But I mean, the second you start bringing up like this specific chord here, just I've
Yeah.
noticed that my kids start to lose interest in that.
Yeah. It's like really hard to get them to be like, it's hard to explain it, because I think as someone who doesn't know it, you don't really see the function of why we're analyzing it. So you
Right.
kind of have to teach uh, the point first, like why we're doing this and why it's good to know, and then teach them the theory. But at the same time, like at least as young teachers, I think we're still trying to figure out like, why do I need to know like a secondary dominant chord other than like we're changing keys, or
Yeah.
the composer's gonna like, it tells you kind of like this is what's gonna happen. So it helps you with like good reading, kind of, and it helps you with like a few other things. But like, to teach that to my kids, uh, I don't, I don't see the purpose of spending a ton of class time on that right now. But like at least the way my program is at the moment, it's like really I'm focusing on getting them to play well. Like, how do I produce good tone? And
Right.
that's not like at a theory level yet.
Yeah, totally agree, man.
Yeah. So we're gonna finish up with a couple things. So one, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about what your experience at Cal State Fullerton was like, and um, if you, besides, or just kind of like give me some like things that you felt like Cal State Fullerton did a good job of preparing me for this, but they didn't really necessarily do a good job of preparing me for other things. And let's not worry so much about the things that are like hard to teach. You know what I mean?
Right.
That like you kind of just have to experience as a director and worry about everything else. So
Right. So I think Cal State Fullerton did do a fantastic job of preparing me in understanding the music
mhm,
and translating that understanding to the kids, where I can look at a piece of music, understand how it goes, and I can translate the understanding to my students.
mhm,
And I felt that they did a fantastic job, more so because of the ensembles and private tutors, where I feel I am strong enough as a musician to lead other young musicians in a large ensemble.
mhm.
And I think that's something that's actually very important, because if your musicianship isn't up to par, it's going to be very difficult to lead a group into what you want to hear from them or what you want
Yeah,
them to sound like.
yeah, I
And
agree.
so with those two aspects, I felt very, very strong in going in and teaching the music. Obviously, there's a lot of things behind the scenes where they don't teach you, or that you just have to experience firsthand as you're becoming a teacher. Like,
Mhm.
no one will ever teach you until you actually experience it, how to address parents,
Mhm.
or how to address, you know um little so and so is having an issue with this, or so and so didn't get the chair placement that they wanted.
Sure.
They don't teach you how to prepare for that, really, because there's no way to teach how to do it unless, one, you see it firsthand, or two, you deal with it in that moment. um
Yeah.
they will give you the tools that you
Yeah.
need to really address the situation. Like, they will tell you, have your rubric ready, have your stance ready, have this ready. They will tell you to keep those tools. But until you actually in that situation, or see someone deal with that situation in person, you're never going to be quite ready to deal with those.
Yeah. I agree. It's Man, I mean, my first year, I can't like the amount of like weird parent interactions that I would get, and like all sorts of things. Like I did not at a point I felt like I'd been prepared for this. Like you know, I can say the right things, I can stand by my rubric and all that. But at the same time, like when a mother is calling you and it's clear that their kids did not like give them the full story and they're just mad, like there's not a lot you can do. And sometimes like it's just an unreasonable person, and like it's hard to teach. Like there's no way that anyone can teach you how to deal with like unreasonable people, because they're always going to be
Yeah,
unreasonable in different ways. So like you just kind of have to learn as you go and learn to kind of go with the flow of it, and just kind of like that I'm going to be the calm person. At least that's my strategy is always there, is that like I'm going to be the calm person. Like I'll apologize endlessly for whatever you're saying. I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm sorry that like I'm sorry for whatever it is that's causing this. But how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Like
yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
that's the best way to deal with it, is just like, okay, you've told me what the problem is, and I'm sorry that you're having a problem. How do I fix it? Or how
Yeah,
do we fix this together? And that's how I've approached it with students too, sometimes when there's students that like are acting up, like how do we fix this? How do we make a deal where it's you and me, and we're gonna fix, like, I don't want to yell at you anymore. I don't want to get upset during class time, and I'm sure you don't like getting yelled at. So how do we fix this problem with each other? Because like I don't hate you, Timmy, but like you're really causing me a lot of stress during my class time. So it's a lot of like, just how do we fix it?
Yeah, and a lot of that comes with the experience of dealing with it, of
Mm-hmm.
actually seeing it firsthand.
Yeah.
So it's one thing, yeah, you're not prepared for it, but it is something that you will acquire the skill for through the trade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I agree that I feel like Cal State Fullerton, and I'm sure many other schools like it, do a very good job of preparing us for being like really good musicians, and being really comfortable with everything, especially like the stuff that we were learning how to do towards the end of Dr. Dickey's class, where it's kind of, actually I guess it was like the first semester, because the second semester is like pre student teaching, right? Um,
Oh yeah.
the stuff like where you had to sit down and look at a score and diagnose problems, and you had to like listen to stuff and memorize the notes and like sing it back like after a break, like that kind of stuff has really stuck to me, is like this is stuff that I need, like and I wish there was more of that out there and more training to be done on that, just like on the diagnosis side. Like I wish I could sit through a whole class of just like, how do I diagnose bad, you know uh and even like, how do I diagnose like subtle things, because there are people out there that are just like, oh yeah, it's the clarinets, they're out of tune, and like, as the director, when someone says that and you're just like, how did you, what do you mean? Because part of you is like blind to it because you've been in front of this group for so long, but at the same time, like, it's just like a skill that you have to develop, where it's just like, I can figure out which sound is not going quite right, and I don't know about you, and I don't think I've mastered that skill yet.
No, and it's something that comes with the time and the territory.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a fortunate situation where during the school year I actually have, a student teacher that they work with both of us.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll, come in, work with me, go and work with their master teacher, come back, work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually nice because then I get to hear what they're hearing,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll explain what they hear to the class. And then I'm like, where did they hear that? Or I'll step back and I'm like, did you not hear this? Or did you not hear that? So it actually, two heads are obviously better than
Right.
one. Two pairs of ears, obviously better than one.
Yeah.
But it really gives us a good viewpoint of different things that we hear.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll obviously, being a low brass player, my ear is going to be tuned to the low brass. I'm going to want to hear that as my primary
Yeah.
voice. I'm always going to be pushing them to, play out,
My
play
low brass
louder.
kids get like really frustrated at me because I'm always like, you're too loud, you're too aggressive, play louder. It's like always, it's always on my low brass kids. And it's like, I'm sorry, like, yeah, I just
uh,
hear you.
no, and it's funny. Like during the marching season, I'll take all brass, and I bring them out. I teach them how to play aggressively. We have our sectional outside because I refuse to do it inside. We're playing outside. We should practice outside. Um,
Mhm.
and we come outside. We have our sectional outside where I'm basically teaching them, you have to be aggressive. You have to play with your full supportive air. You have to, real outside playing, real marching playing.
Yeah.
And then when December hits and we're transitioning over to our holiday music and all that good stuff, we now, hey, you need to back up. No, shut up. No, be quiet. Stop hitting it so hard.
Yeah.
And it's like, that transition is always a little bit difficult. But I mean, now they're starting to get the understanding of this is when I'm allowed to play, aggressive, in your face,
Mm-hmm.
all that good stuff. Now I have to play in a concert setting.
Yeah. And most of mine, I think, get that nuance, but it's like almost an it's a low brass thing. Like, it's an unwillingness. Like, no, you don't understand. I need to play loud now. I need to like let it go. And it's maybe we all need to be programming more music to let low brass let go. But it's like just so it feels so right. Okay, I'm going to end it on 2 questions.
All right.
Question 1, what are you doing currently to keep yourself sharp? And question 2, are you currently looking into a master's degree?
So to answer your first question, keeping myself sharp, I have been practicing the horn a lot. I keep it out and ready to play. Because if you put it in your case, you're not going to touch it. Let's just be honest. If it's into the case, you are not going to touch it.
Yeah.
So I keep my horn out. I keep it ready to go. I was practicing a little bit before this, and I'm revisiting a lot of fundamentals where I will go down and I'll do basement long tones, revisiting my pedal tones.
Yeah. Have you ever done any warm-ups, like Chris Olka warm-ups?
I haven't touched it yet. That's going to be on my to-do list in this next month.
Those are crazy. He has one called Jellyfish.
I think we played that before.
I think maybe David's done that. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's a killer. It's evil. And the man is a madman. Because he's like, oh yeah, it's just so like start at 100. So the concept for those that don't know, the concept is if you're on a C tuba, you're gonna start on your middle C. I think it's your middle C. Yeah.
On the staff.
Yeah, in the staff. So you're gonna start on the C, and you're gonna do lip slurs. So you're gonna do C, da 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 da. You're gonna slur up to the next partial. I think it's the next partial, and not the next octave. Da 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 da. So you're gonna do a lip slur, da 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 da, and then you go down, da da. So da 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 da. Then you go down 1, down 2, down 3, down 2 and 3, down to 4, and then you do one where it's just like a chain of all. So you go da 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 da.
Yeah, that sounds
then
familiar.
Back up, and so you go through all that. So that's your first run. That's 100. Okay, then you take it up by 10 clicks every time. And it's vicious. So like right now I can go up to like about 150. I think in my like heyday I was going up to like 200. But the madman named Chris Olka can go up to 300 at eighth notes, 300 beats per minute.
That's not right.
Watch his video on it. And he's just like da 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 da. Like you can barely hear. It's like creates this almost effect where like he's accenting the notes, but he's not. Where it's just like this is where the partial just slots really perfectly. And it's just like crazy how this man, how are you doing this? So like that's something I practice a lot. He's got a lot of good warm-ups. A lot of lip slurs. Anything else that you're staying sharp on?
I'm actually going through, and I've been going through JW Pepper a lot, actually.
Interesting.
Where I'll just go in randomly. They'll have a lot of their scores on sample, where you can follow along the score as it's playing. And I'll actually go through, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about this, but I'll actually go through and sight read the score while I listen to a piece. Just so that way I can keep my reading up on scores. Just because, like, the last time I touched music was my festival music, where I was in front of the kids. And, we've been studying for that nonstop. You know the piece inside and out. You can conduct it with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
But I've been really trying to just sight read new scores so that way I can improve my own reading and just keep it nice and fresh.
Mhm.
Where, if I see something coming, like I can cue it and I can hear it, or like if like I have it in my head of like what my ensemble is in front of me,
Mhm.
I go through and kind of do a mock, you know, conducting of what I expect the piece to look like. I know it's a little bit of like, you should do it without the recording, or you
Yeah.
should have your own oral image, and I understand that. But with me, it really helps if I have something to listen to as well, where I'm not going to be actually leading the group, but I can still go along with it.
Yeah. I tend to, at least in my own reading, when I'm trying to do something like that, where I'm doing like a score study, and I'm like beating along. When I try to do it without any sort of recording, I kind of lose focus, like maybe halfway through most of the time, where it's
Hmm.
just like like I reached a rest, or like, hey, that's interesting, that I look at it, and then I stop doing it that way. And I don't really know. There's not too many good sources for like what good score study really should look like. That's
Yeah,
another thing. Like, I feel like there should be, at least definitely for like music education majors, there needs to be more classes that are like, or at least one class that's just like, this is how you study a score, like real good. Um,
yeah, and we didn't really get that until we were on our way out the door.
yeah, that's so like a lot of the things that I felt were most useful as a education person were like things that we did in the last semester, or the last year. And I felt like I wanted more time on those things than anything else. Like all the musicianship and music theory stuff, like I got it, and like I was ready to move on. But like by the time we got to the music education stuff, I was like, wait,
Yeah,
please.
definitely. And just to go on top of that too, we for those of you that don't know, Mr. Mogg and I had an awesome programming class where
Mm-hmm.
we actually had to go through and program concerts for different scenarios. So the very first one was you have the all state honor group,
Yeah.
which is basically no restriction on anything except
I
like
think was it, the first one was
endurance.
actually like the Marine Band or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was the Marine Band.
yeah.
It was like no restriction on anything that you have to do. And it's one of those things where, program what you want.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're gonna
So
play
we put
Circus Maximus. Let's go.
so we put together our programs and it was cool. The next level down, we now had our and it just kept going down in sequence. So we had a college wind ensemble, and then we had the all-state wind ensemble for a high school level, and then we had a high school wind ensemble, high school symphonic band, middle school wind ensemble, middle school introduction band,
Yeah.
elementary. And it was really cool just to see like, okay, you're not going to program, whole suite in E flat for your freshman band in high school,
Right.
and it's one of those things where it really opened our eyes on, okay, we just can't go in and play pieces that we
Right.
thought were really good.
Even then, like my programming mistakes, I feel like I make one every year where I'm like, okay, they can do this, and then it's like, nope. Actually, it's really hard, and
Yeah.
harmonies are hard, and we're missing like three of the instruments that the composer wanted, and like it just, uh, it's always hard for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's definitely a challenge, and like I said, I'm in a fortunate situation
yeah,
where I can actually bounce those ideas off of other people. Like, hey, what do you think of this piece? Hey, what do you think of this piece?
yeah,
And it works out great where I have that literature, um, but there's also that like, what can the kids play?
yeah. Okay, last question, Tim. Are you looking into getting your master's?
I am looking into getting my master's. I've been looking towards ABC, American Band College, just to try to really get the master's, really engross myself in what I could possibly improve on.
Mm-hmm.
The big challenge I'm just having right now personally is just financially paying for it,
Right.
and I'm sure with the situation right now, a lot of people are in that situation of like, how
Yeah.
do we pay for this?
Well taken.
And but so I do have plans of doing it, just not immediately. I'm hoping within the next, 3 or 4 years I can get that started.
Yeah.
But I mean, for right now, I'm not in a rush. I am learning what I can through the resources that I have,
Yeah.
and I am, you know, I'm doing what I can as to the best of my ability. So I would love to go and do a master's right away,
Hmm.
but the reality of it is I should probably hold on till there's a better time, and just hold out until
Yeah.
I'm really certain I can
Yeah.
fiscally
Sure.
handle
Sure.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking into it a lot this year. I applied to Michigan actually.
Hmm.
They denied me.
Oh.
Because well, like I talked to Cornette about it last year, Dr. Cornette, for those
Hmm.
who know, who's a wonderful, wonderful music pedagogue. She's amazing. She's the one who's teaching that what is it? Programming class that Mr. Vrooman was talking about. Um, and she was like, "Well, ABC, like if you're looking into like going higher, like I guess amongst like colleges, it's not viewed very highly, which I think is kind of rough. So I applied for Michigan, and I ended up, I ended up then getting denied and being like, okay, then screw it, I'm going to ABC. So I applied for ABC, and I should be doing my first year there this summer, assuming that things get better. Otherwise, I guess it's going to be online, and it'll be significantly cheaper this year because then I won't have to pay for housing.
Yeah,
Um,
and I've heard a couple things about ABC where you know the main thing is, from what I hear, is that you get out what you put into it.
yeah,
So if you're going into it with the mindset of I'm going to improve myself, I want to get better at a certain
yeah,
skill, then they will actually give you the tools to help you achieve that. If
yeah,
you're going into it just for a piece of paper,
yeah,
um, then that's what you're going to get out of it.
yeah.
So
Well, definitely. I mean, I don't think I would ever draw into question the quality of the education that I mean, I'm signed up to go there, so uh, I believe in the program.
yeah,
But I definitely I think it's interesting that like there's this kind of like anti this like what's the word academic like academic people in the colleges that are like against like a program like that that's more practical for music educators. I think is kind of silly, like the
yeah.
fact that getting a master's from there might be a detriment to you getting a doctorate doesn't make any sense to me, like.
No, it doesn't. It's, to me, it's a way of progressing yourself, just like
Mhm.
with anything else that you're doing.
Yeah,
You get out of high school, you go to college, you're progressing yourself. After college, you go to grad school, you're progressing yourself. Um, it's just a way for people to grow.
yeah,
And when I'm, you know, out in front of kids, like, yeah, I'm teaching them, but at the same time, I'm learning.
yeah,
And whatever situation you're in, you're going to learn from. There have been tons and tons and tons of situations where I'm pretty sure, like, you could agree, where it's like, yeah, you're frustrated at a situation, but there's a ton that you can learn from it.
hmm yeah. I mean,
um
I'm always learning. I think it's really like important to be thinking about like how do I learn from this situation, and like every day in my classes I'm like thinking about like this is kind of different, like how do I tackle this and did that work, and all that. As a new educator, you need to be very aware of that, I think.
yeah, and even when you're in situations that you're not really familiar with, for example, I went and, like I said before, I went and taught a couple of choir classes in lieu of the choir teacher being there.
Mhm.
And, there was a lot that I didn't know, but the one thing I'm going to fall back on is the musicianship that I know. And that's something that I can pass down. And, Mr. Mag has known me for a very long time. He knows that my school of thought is that if the breath is wrong, everything is
Right.
wrong. And so I actually approached the choir in that sense of like, if the breath is wrong, everything else is wrong. And, just that one little concept changed a whole different
Yeah.
uh, sound.
Yeah, and
So,
you're not alone in that theory. That's like probably the most popular theory of like high school directors I've ever heard. And to an extent, I very strongly agree with it. Is that like if you're breathing right, then you're doing it right, and if you're not breathing right, then you're doing it wrong. And that's like I try to reinforce breathing gym as much as I can in my classes, and I always end up like forgetting to do it on a regular basis or whatever for my kids. But I think it's very important. And whenever I see like breath trainer stuff, I'm always like, yeah, I'm gonna get that, and I'm gonna get really good at breathing, uh, because it's such an important like aspect. And I think to a degree the breath is so important because it allows the rest of you to just relax the way it's supposed to.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
in my own playing, I find that like if I haven't played in a while and I'm not like here set up, then this isn't gonna work. And if this is not working, then I'm like trying a lot harder and trying to muscle everything to come out, and it's just not gonna work.
Yeah.
So you have to like come in with a really relaxed way of like doing it. And when you're constantly running out of breath, it's just you're just kind of playing. And choir, I mean, that's the perfect place to test that theory, right? Is because
Oh, yeah. Big time.
breathing is the whole thing. Uh, there's no other real good factors that will screw you up in choir other than breathing. It's not like
Yeah.
your instrument can break.
Especially with like basses that are exploring for the first time
Mhm.
that bass range or the
Yeah,
baritone range. Um, and they like start trying away from the notes. I'm like, why are you doing that? No, I want to hear you more.
yeah.
So no, it's a really big theory. It's
Mhm.
one that I've based a lot of my teaching on, and it served
Yeah.
me well so far.
Well, thank you for joining me, Tim,
Of
for
course.
this first like interview in hopefully a series. Um, I was talking with our mutual friend Andrew yesterday, and
Oh,
he
I miss
might be
Andrew.
interested in doing one of these next week. So maybe we can talk about it, and maybe we can have the three of us on again, and keep doing these because I think it's important, at least from my perspective, and this is why we're doing this and why I'm having these conversations. Is there's not a lot of music people talking about music things available online. I feel, and there's not a lot of not just new directors, but not a lot of directors talking about like issues that they're having. There's not a lot of directors talking about like what they feel like their high schoolers need to know about like being a music major and all that. And I want to kind of expose a little bit of light on that, and I want to like be productive during this time. So I'm glad that we can do this, and I hope we can
Hmm.
continue.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna cut the